is exactly what it says. It's the size of our ability in terms of bandwidth, etc., duration, to manage a particular challenging situation. So we are present and flexible and calm, and we're able to respond flexibly to a situation. But when we leave our window of tolerance, and it can be different on different days, we might become hyper aroused, high energy, panicky, outburst, irritability. We might find it difficult to concentrate. We might engage in self-destructive behaviours, being shouty, tricky, lashing out, becoming hyper vigilant. The other side of a window of tolerance, if we're really finding it extremely difficult, we might shut down. We might become numb, frozen, disconnected, lethargic, and depressed. We've been kicked beyond our window of tolerance. So tolerance of uncertainty is on a range for all of us. Some of us are really low down on the bell curve. If we've suffered from some experience that's generated a lot of anxiety, and we're suffering from anxiety because our brain has changed as a result of that experience to be more anxious and vigilant, we're going to have a lower tolerance of uncertainty. People with autistic spectrum condition generally have a lower tolerance of uncertainty because their neurally diverse brains are densely connected. So a neuron might be connected to 30,000 other neurons. So just a little bit of firing locally might disrupt the pattern in the brain and lead to huge feelings of anxiety and a loss of cognitive control and a loss of cognitive bandwidth and mental flexibility. And children with adverse childhood experiences may well be very short on that window of tolerance. Then there's most people kind of in the middle, somewhere on that bell curve. And then there are people with smaller amygdalas that do things that the rest of us look at and go, really? Climbing mountains without ropes? Really? Jumping off mountains with parachutes? Really? Because their window of tolerance is just much, much wider than ours. Now, worry is generated when our brain runs out of a model. Remember, our brain is a prediction engine. If your brain doesn't have a model for a situation, it's going to set off the anxiety system. And brains become quite quickly moany, groany and drony when they face challenge and change. So this visual image here may not be clear as to what it is. If you've seen something like this before, it might be clear. But if not, your brain's a bit confused. So if you think about this situation as an analogous to a situation that might generate uncertainty. So instead of a visual image, some event occurs in your world that generates uncertainty. Now, brains are very good at updating models of the situation once they've got more information. But in order to get more information, they need to upregulate their effort. So that means that we're going to experience a stress response. That's going to generate more energy. That means that our brain's going to be more vigilant and gather more information. But we're also going to experience a strong sympathetic nervous system activation, which is anxiety. If we give our brain a new piece of information, like here we've given the brain a new model, it can update itself, as you can see, really quite quickly to any situation. And brain's predictions about the future, which really is what's happening when a brain's worrying, it's generating lots of worst case scenarios. Brain's predictions can be wrong. So here, this bottom square appears to be white and the top square appears to be grey, but the whiteness of the bottom square is caused by the visual circuits adding in the effect of shadow. If we take it away, you can see they are in fact the same shade. So our brain activates 3 times more powerfully when it processes negative or unexpected information, because it's having to activate more powerfully to gather more information. That's a feeling of discombobulation. That's a feeling of anxiety. Now, brains do that because in our ancestral past, we were hunted. And you can imagine a brain that generates worst case scenarios in a place where we're hunted is quite a helpful brain in terms of helping us survive. So this twitchy warthog down by the watering hole having a drink, you can see why it's twitchy, because there are predators around the edge of the watering hole, and that crocodile advances beneath the surface towards the warthog, and then the warthog takes some instant action to protect itself. That is the power of a negative piece of response from the brain. Now, the problem nowadays is change and uncertainty are everywhere, so our worry system is set off most days with lots of negative cognitive distortions. These things all or nothing thinking, jumping to conclusions, catastrophizing. If our worry system goes off, we need to notice that it's gone off, not necessarily believe what it's telling us at the time, because brain's predictions can be wrong. Anxiety will resolve when the brain builds a new model of that situation and then literally teaches the amygdala, the bit of the brain that responds to change, what not to be frightened of. So the key message here is if you worry a lot, you can't and should not believe everything your brain thinks at those moments, because those are just worst case scenarios running in your brain. So your brain can take action to avoid them. And one way of balancing the brain's response throughout each and every day is take the circuits of your dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, the bit that does strategy, that builds models, that ultimately soothes the amygdala, build in Gladden every day. It strengthens those circuits. One thing you're grateful for, one thing you learned, one thing you achieved, one thing that delighted you, one positive emotion you experienced and why, and one new experience you had and what it was like. To manage those cognitive distortions, you could also use the WAT framework. The WAT framework means you catch a thought. So I'm going to fail this exam because I can't do this question. I always fail exams, catastrophizing, jumping to conclusions. Just thinking about the thought in a new way enables you to move from your worry system up to the top of your prefrontal cortex and manage that system. Beginning to build a new model. You could do it the same way using this grid. You catch the worry in the little cloud. You write down what the problem is, because the worry is identifying some issue that's set off the anxiety system. Once you've written the problem down, you can build solutions. You're literally moving the firing pattern from your worry system behind your eyebrows up to the top of your forehead where your cranium curves. That's where the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex is, that will begin to soothe the worry system. Morning Neuroninjas, welcome to today's wellbeing workout. So today we're going to focus on this question: why do I worry so much? Answer 1, because my mind-wandering network is focusing on negative predictions and worst case scenarios, and I need to manage it better from my dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. That is wonderfully nerdy, isn't it? Let's unpack that a little bit and go into a bit more sort of detail. The second answer is because there's a lot of uncertainty in my world and my brain is reacting to that uncertainty. And the final answer is because I may have a brain that is more sensitive to or have a lower tolerance for anxiety, uncertainty and